Progressive Utilisation Theory, or Prout, is an alternative socio-economic model with the capacity to rectify many of society's problems today. According to world-renowned intellectual Noam Chomsky, he said about the Prout model, alternative visions are crucial at this moment in history. Prout's cooperative model of economic democracy based on cardinal human values and the sharing of resources of the planet for the welfare of everyone deserves our serious consideration. The following interview is with revolutionary monk Dada Maheshvarananda, who is the director and founder of the Prout Research Institute of Venezuela. He also recently authored the book After Capitalism, Economic Democracy in Action, which is essential reading for anybody who'd like to find out more about the Prout model. The interview was divided into two parts. The first part looks at the social, spiritual, philosophical and ecological foundations of the Prout model before moving on to its practical application in society, where we'll be able to have a look at what the world will look like under a Prout model where the primary objective of society becomes human progress instead of profit.
My name is Dada Maheshvarananda. I was born and raised in the United States. In 1971, when I started university there, it was a very confusing time. The war against Vietnam was going on. I didn't agree with the war, and I was protesting this war that was being done in the name of all American people, including me. First, I applied to become a conscientious objector. Then I decided to burn my draft card and inform the government office that I was breaking the law. I hung up at the same time we saw that the multinational corporations were exploiting the world, and that the war was just one symptom of a greater problem that was worldwide already. I hung a poster on my wall in the university by Che Guevara, and it said, at the risk of sounding ridiculous, I would say that the true revolutionary is guided by great feelings of love. I thought, that's what I want to be. I want to be a revolutionary trying to change the world as fast as possible, and yet guided by love. Shortly after that, I started learning yoga and meditation as a hobby. And I discovered an inner peace and happiness and fulfillment more than I had dreamed possible. So in 1978, at the age of 24, I went to India and became a monk and spent the following years in Southeast Asia, Brazil, Europe, and since 2006, I've been the director of the Prout Research Institute in Venezuela. So I'm a monk, a revolutionary monk, an activist monk who's seriously trying to change the world and yet at the same time promote love and peace to everyone. Prout is a socio-economic model to help the world, to share the resources of the world for everyone in a sustainable way, to protect the environment. And it's based on the economic self-reliance of every region in the world. It's based on cooperatives. It's based on economic democracy. And it's based on ethical and spiritual values, which I think are fundamental to this socio-economic model that is very holistic. I think he was a genius. He gave revolutionary ideas in many different fields of life, and he empowered people. His unconditional love made me feel like I was the most important person in the world to him. And I know an awful lot of people who felt the same way. He inspired me to dedicate my life in the service of humanity and the world. He his love, I think, is at the base of Prout, because I think the Prout model, which is to solve the problems of the world, the hunger, poverty, war, the most serious problems that we're all facing, ecological destruction. It solves it because it's based on love, that we can't leave anyone behind, that everyone is important, everyone is a member of a global family. And so this feeling of the family of humanity is at the basis of all his work. So he was a great inspiration for me. He was a very humble man at the same time, and charming. We laughed with him a lot, and he always gave the feeling that you were part of his closest family. He's a father sitting with his children, and it was very loving, very warm, very safe feeling we had in his presence. And I think that the Prout model that he gave is based on that love, based on that feeling of trust and warmth and moving together. You know, he said once that human beings have developed a lot, but we never quite learned how to live and work in peace with one another. And this, I think, is fundamental. And he said that society, we should see it as a family, like a family on a journey. If somebody gets sick, everybody stops and takes care of the person, or, manages to carry them with us. We don't leave anybody behind. And this, I think, is the spirit of Prout. Neo-humanism is a philosophy. Humanism, is the philosophy that we're all one human family. And neo-humanism starts at that point and adds all the animals and plants and even the planet, everything animate and inanimate, to that family. We, as perhaps the most intelligent species on the planet, we have a responsibility as the elders, sisters, or brothers of a family to look after the other creatures. So neo-humanism is an expansion of our identification and allegiance from the self to the family to the community to the region or country, finally to the entire planet. So we're expanding our feeling of compassion and concern for everyone and everything. This expansion of compassion is kind of based on the idea of the ecological principle or theme that think globally and act locally. We care about everything, but wherever you are on the planet, do something positive to make this planet work. In the world, there are today more than 1,000 schools that are based on neo-humanist education to broaden the consciousness of students, to encourage their rational mind, also their loving compassion, and also diversity, that we accept everyone and appreciate everyone. Neo-humanism is the philosophy at the basis of Prout because it works against racism, sexism, all kinds of discrimination of every sort, because it sees everyone as our human family. We cannot leave anyone behind. So this philosophy is crucial to making economic and social decisions. I'll tell three differences. One difference is that both Marxism and capitalism are materialist outlooks. They have materialism as their philosophical base as compared to neo-humanism of Prout. Materialism will never satisfy the human being because, in my opinion, we all have a longing for infinite happiness. And, pleasures will never completely satisfy that. Neither will the accumulation of wealth, as in capitalism. In fact, the very richest people are often very unhappy individuals because our longing for love can never be met really by things. Or the best things in life are not things, as they say. Prout takes the view that the human being has a thirst, a longing for happiness, and that only through love can we truly fulfill that happiness. The second difference is in terms of incentives. Marx said, from each according to his ability, to each according to their need. This doesn't work for everybody. People want to know that their lives are getting better. They want to be able to work harder to get more. So for a lot of people, incentives are an important part of economics. Capitalism takes the opposite approach. No limits whatsoever on the accumulation of income, wealth, or land. And this means that in capitalist societies, you get extremely wealthy people. So wealthy it's impossible to imagine how much they have. Living right beside extreme poverty, suffering. So Prout takes the view that first we guarantee the minimum necessities to everyone, and second, we allow incentives, but within a reasonable amount. So there's a cap, a ceiling on wealth accumulation of an individual, of a family, land ownership, income. The third difference is that both Marxism and capitalism tend to be centralized economies. In the communist governments of the world, from the capital, they make quotas for both agriculture and industrial production. So it's a very centralized economy, a planned economy. Capitalism is a centralized economy by its nature, meaning that corporations become monopolies that dominate the world in certain things, and so they're able to control prices directly, indirectly. They're manipulating prices in the world. And they bankrupt many, many local businesses, farmers all over the world. Prout, on the other hand, is a decentralized economy, which allows for private enterprise at the small scale, cooperatives, and public utilities. So all of these allow communities, through economic democracy, to decide their own economic future, to not be controlled by a central government or by multinational corporations, but rather to give everyone a voice in their economic future. Prout gives great importance to moral leaders because society needs true leaders to lead the masses forward in social change. Anyone can become an ideal leader through a personal example of honesty, dedication to the welfare of everyone, to moral conviction. We can inspire others and guide them. At any moment in time, today, in the future, one class, one group starts to exploit others. leaders need to step forward then to change society, to do social change, to bring a new progressive era to the society. And ideal leaders can minimize violence while making the progress happen as soon as possible to end the exploitation and reduce the suffering. So leaders are a key to making society better. Most economic systems lack an ecological and spiritual perspective. Prout considers them essential. It's interesting that most traditional societies, virtually all traditional societies, indigenous cultures in the Americas, Africa, Asia, Australasia, the people didn't feel that they owned the land. They felt that they were a part of the land. And this traditional aspect or traditional point of view that we're all connected to nature, to all of life, we're come out of the earth, we return to the earth. This view is accepted, is echoed in Prout. A spiritual perspective is also essential to realize that we're, again, one human family, that we have to take care of everyone. We can't leave anyone behind. So a spiritual and ecological outlook says all life forms are connected. We have to stop the cancerous growth of capitalism. Nothing in nature grows without limits except a cancer. And if it's not stopped, it will eventually kill its host. We're now killing the life support systems of our planet. So we need a spiritual and ecological perspective because we're all connected. And we need this in order to build a society for the future that's not based on a materialist self-gratification, but is based on community, love, compassion. I think it very much is. I think that no belief system is necessary to adopt this socio-economic model of progressive utilization theory. I would say that we can all agree, just like ecology tells us, that all life forms are interconnected. It's interesting also that the physicists who study quantum mechanics also agree that we're all connected, also agree with spirituality that there is a greater intelligence that seems to be guiding the planet and nature, the universe. And that by living in harmony with the laws of nature, we can make a better world for all. I would say that the greatest connection between people is love. And I also believe that there are practices we can do to increase our ability to love others. And one of these is meditation, silent meditation. There have been many studies and research that show statistically the health benefits and the mental health benefits of meditation practice, a daily meditation practice. So though meditation is not required to make a better world, I think that healthy individuals can help make a healthy society. And at the same time, by creating a healthy society, we can help develop more healthy individuals. I believe we live at a moment of crisis and great opportunity. Our planet is in danger. People are suffering. And we need to change society as fast as possible. I believe we can change society very quickly because together nothing's impossible. And I feel it's our responsibility, it's our duty to future generations to make a society that works for all, to create a loving, harmonious society for everyone. I also think that we have within us a physical, mental, and spiritual potential that is much greater than we can possibly imagine. So I think it's time now for us to together think about and create a better world for all. We can do it. Together we can make this happen. In traditional cultures, indigenous cultures, extreme competition and hoarding of wealth was considered a mental disease. Traditional societies are cooperative in nature. However, global capitalism has no limits to the accumulation of wealth. It's based on extreme competition, profit, selfishness, and greed. And this is causing tremendous suffering. Capitalism works well for some people, but not for everyone. So today, nearly half the world's population, about more than 3 billion people, are living, suffering, and dying in poverty. A poverty that's completely unnecessary because we have enough food, we have enough resources to share in a sustainable way for the welfare of everyone. So Prout proposes that we should have limits to the accumulation of wealth. Just as the US government, and really every government in the world, has limits in their salaries that they pay to government officials. For example, in the United States, the pay scale from a starting employee in the government, federal employee or state or city, same, is about 1/10 of the top salary paid to the president, a general, or a Supreme Court judge. 10 times the gap. Norway, in comparison, has only a 5-time gap, and they're very happy with their society and their economy. Why don't we do the same in society as a whole and make limits on the accumulation of wealth, land ownership, and income? It's a complete macroeconomic model that can be applied anywhere. It has great depth and sophistication. It's important to remember that it's not any kind of rigid mold to be imposed on any society. Rather, it's a set of dynamic principles that the people and leaders can apply appropriately so that their communities, regions, and nations can prosper in a sustainable way. If Prout is applied, this model is applied by any country, there are going to be a lot of decisions to be made. Seeing the principles, considering, studying the local situation. It follows a formula of Sarkar. He says, first, know the area, study it. Second, make a plan to serve everybody. And finally, serve the people. So this is the principle that Prout follows whenever it tries to make proposals for a society to implement. In 2003, I published my first Prout book, which was called Prout's Vision for a New World. It was published in 10 languages, and the Spanish edition was published here in 2003 in Venezuela. At that time, a friend of a friend invited me to be on the weekly television show of President Hugo Chavez. So I was able to present a copy of the book to him. And during his show, he said, "Thank you very much, brother. And let's continue with spirituality, spirit, good faith, morality, and the mystical force that guides the world." I love that idea. He also said, "You are welcome, Dada Maheshvarananda, to come as all citizens of the world, especially those with good ideas and a moral flame to contribute to our Bolivarian revolution here." So I started working from that time, actually, raising funds. And finally, in 2006, I was ready to come here with a small team of volunteers. In 2007, we registered the Prout Research Institute of Venezuela. When Sarkar came to this country, the founder of Prout visited Venezuela in 1979. And though I wasn't here at that time, he said, "Venezuela needs good spiritual political leaders. And if Venezuela can produce good spiritual leaders, it will be not only the leader of Latin America, but the leader of the world. Venezuela is a blessed country." Now, it's important to remember that Sarkar said very inspiring messages to the people of every country. But for myself, for the Venezuelan people, this is an inspiring message. And another reason is that the goals of the Venezuelan government and the goals of Prout have many similarities. For example, the meeting the minimum necessities of life for all the people is a major goal of the government, and it's a goal of Prout. Worker-managed enterprises, food sovereignty to make the country self-sufficient in food. These are all common goals that we share. So I can speak with ministers in any ministry of the government, and we're talking the same language. We have the same goals. Political democracy is empowering the people to make the political decisions to shape their own future. Economic democracy empowers both individuals and communities to decide their economic future. It's an economy of the people, by the people, and for the people. When I produced my book, I interviewed Noam Chomsky. He contributed a conversation. And in that talk, it was filmed by the film crew from Occupy Wall Street. And during that interview, Noam Chomsky said, "You can't have meaningful political democracy without of functioning economic democracy. Economic democracy is empowering local communities through sustainable agriculture, green enterprises, and cooperative credit unions to provide loans for private enterprises, individual houses, etc., to build up the local economy. There are 4 requirements of economic democracy. The first is guaranteeing the minimum necessities of life to everyone, which is a fundamental principle of Prout: food, clothing, housing, education, and medical care. The second principle is guaranteeing the purchasing capacity and increasing quality of life of the people. People have to feel that their lives are improving, that they have an economic future, that things can be a little bit better for their kids and their families. The third requirement of economic democracy is that the local community, people in consensus, have to decide their own future. They can't be manipulated and controlled by economic powers far away. And the fourth requirement of economic democracy is no outside control, meaning multinational corporations aren't stealing 90% of every dollar spent in their stores and sending it to their investors abroad, as happens today. And that there's no flight of wealth, that the money is not leaving, that the money that is earned in the community circulates in the community for the growth and welfare of everyone. The International Cooperative Alliance is actually the largest organization in the world. It's composed of 296 national and international organizations for cooperatives. And they define cooperatives like this. A cooperative is an autonomous association of persons voluntarily united to meet their economic, cultural, and social needs through jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. Many people are unaware of how big and how successful cooperatives are in the world. Today, more than 1 billion people, a seventh of our world's population, is a member of a cooperative. And not only members, cooperatives create more jobs. They create 100 million jobs, whereas all the multinational corporations together produce only 80 million jobs in the world. And even more important, I think, is that cooperatives are much more likely to succeed than private enterprises. In the United States, for example, in the first year of opening, 60 to 80% of private businesses fail and go bankrupt, whereas only 10% of cooperatives fail in the same first year. By the 5th year, it's even more dramatic, because 95 to 97% of private enterprises have failed and gone bankrupt within 5 years. And still nearly 90% of cooperatives are still functioning. These are statistics. These are not opinions. Why don't the business news tell us this information? One, I don't think they want people to know how badly capitalism is actually doing. Second, they're not interested in cooperatives. There's nothing to invest. You can loan money to a cooperative, and the cooperative will pay you back with a small amount of interest. But you can't buy it out. You can't own it. You can't invest in it. Because all cooperatives are worker-owned. They're owned by the members, not by outside financiers, investors. Cooperatives, they help communities dramatically by creating jobs, by keeping the wealth in the community, and by building social connections between people. Cooperatives are the most important part of a Proutist economy, because a Prout economy has 3 levels. The first one is small-scale private enterprises. Any individual, any family, any small group of people can open a private enterprise. But cooperatives, which are democratically owned and managed, cooperatives are the biggest employer in a Proutist economy because they're democratically run and they help everybody. And finally, the third tier in a Prout economy is publicly owned utilities that are owned by the communities, never privatized, never sold out, for the benefit of everybody. So cooperatives are the most important part of a Proutist economy. In Brazil, for example, Dr. Susan Andrews in 1992 started a rural community called the Future Vision Ecological Park. And every year, more than 9,000 people go there, mostly on the weekends, but also for intensive courses. Participants to learn about biopsychology for personal development and Prout for social development. It's a very exciting model of sustainable rural development that attracts people, provides jobs, and creates a new style of living. Another example of Prout is in the Philippines. There is a national coalition of Prout called Ang Kasama, which means we are companions in the local Tagalog language. There's more than 5,000 activists and more than 200 Proutist leaders who are guiding this alliance based on Prout that is trying to start cooperatives, help the people, and also unite Filipinos in an anti-exploitation sentiment. In India are some very exciting examples. India is where, of course, Sarkar lived most of his life and where he started the Prout movement. For example, in Chhattisgarh state, a very poor district, Pradeep Sharma and 15 young Proutists have started. They started with one village. Now more than 100 villages have started cooperatives, started organic agriculture. And the cooperative network of trucks come in every day, pick up the produce. They're paying each, it's women-run cooperatives. They're paying basically every woman of the community $4 a day. This is a new income for these people, additional to jobs and things that they've had. So it's making the families, it's reducing dramatically malnutrition. It's increasing the income of the people and increasing the quality of their lives. More than 100 cooperatives, 100 villages. In the states of Odisha and West Bengal, there are popular Prout movements, and other places too. There's a magazine produced regularly in Delhi, several thousand subscriptions. Also for example, in Hungary, there's a very large popular youth movement in Hungary. In Kenya, Proutists have started homeopathic clinics throughout the country that is revolutionizing healthcare, making it affordable and accessible to the poorest people in the country, in Kenya and neighboring countries too. In Ghana and Nigeria, again, Prout has started women's run healthcare, hospitals, clinics, and village healthcare workers. In Australia, there's a Prout College. Around the world, there are different Prout initiatives. Although it's true that no country, no state has yet implemented the entire Prout model to show in practice how it can benefit the lives and create full employment for everyone. I've already explained a little bit about how poverty and unemployment can be solved by guaranteeing the minimum necessities of life to everyone and creating cooperatives, because cooperatives create jobs. Another serious problem is the super accumulation of wealth that, extreme wealth beside extreme poverty. So Prout would make limits on the income, the wealth accumulation, and land ownership so that it's more equitable society. Another problem is the manipulation, I would say the brainwashing of people around the world by the corporate-owned media and corporate advertising, which is literally teaching us that be selfish, be self-centered, get a job, make as much money as you can, and doesn't teach really any inherent responsibility for anyone else. Rather, they teach the idea that I win, you lose, or I win and I don't even care what happens to anybody else. This attitude is destroying our families, our communities, our nations. So, Prout would suggest that cooperatives should run the media. Cooperatives of journalists, educators, and artists of all kinds to make inspiring, educational, and informative shows. There's nothing wrong with the technology of TV or movies. The problem is what we do with it. Another world is possible was a theme of the World Social Forum. I took part in the first, second, third, the sixth, the fifth, several others in different countries, and always the theme was another world is possible. Well, this invites the question, what kind of world do we want? I think this question is fundamental, and it should be asked, in my opinion, to students at every level of education, from kindergarten to postgraduate level. And the media should be asking it every day too. What kind of world do we want? Because I truly believe that if we work together, we can make a very beautiful world. But it's important to know what we want. In this process, consciousness raising is also very important. And Prout is always involved with consciousness raising. There's no roadmap. There's no set of universal instructions that will teach people how to achieve social change in the best way possible in every country and every culture. However, with consciousness raising, we have all the tools at our disposal. It's a matter of uniting, having our common goal, and working together in a spirit of human family, magnanimous, inclusive, diverse, working together to achieve the world we want. It's possible. Let's do it.